Okay, what we're starting with here is 6/4 hard maple. It's really nice, clear stuff, very consistent looking. What we're starting to do is process this lumber. It's S3S. So we're going to cut it to length. I have templates for the right and left side of this fireplace. And so we're going to give ourselves plenty of room and mark the lengths accordingly. On these templates, I scribed the walls so that the countertop will, there'll be no gap where the countertop meets the wall. Here we're just cross-cutting. After the cross-cutting, they're going to go through the joiner and get flattened and ripped and planed and dressed and be ready for edge joining. Here we've got a dry fit. We're just putting boards together and orienting grain and figuring out how we're going to arrange them for each counter. And then I just lay the template on top to just make sure that everything is the right size. And once you figure that all out and the wood's dressed and looking good, you just edge glue it up. Nothing fancy, just edge gluing. Totally sufficient. Just double checking the template. And here it's cooked in the clamps for about 6 hours. We're going to turn the clamps loose and get ready to start the next counter. Setting this one aside and grab some more maple and get going. Same drill. You can see they're planed and jointed and nice and straight, square. And we're just going to arrange these basically so that the joints are nice and tight once they're getting in the clamps. You don't want to tighten your clamps too much because you can squeeze the glue right out of the joint. Just enough clamping pressure to keep everything tight and try and keep your workpiece as flat as you can in the clamps. Still kind of fiddling around with it, just trying to get the best fit possible, and then make witness marks and just make sure everything's going to fit properly. And the glue up with the glue roller. I like it because it, on a nice edge like this, it rolls out a consistent thickness of glue, and you don't end up slopping it everywhere when you squeeze it out of a tube. And we're putting them down in the clamps. Now's the tricky part. Getting them back the way they were in the dry fit. For some reason, the dry fit is always easier than the glue up. Just get them flush as you can. It's not going to necessarily be a perfect situation because wood has variances, but you do the best you can. You can never have too many clamps. Okay, now we're just going to take the square and just check for flatness and just try to get it as close as we can. Make it easy on ourselves when we go to flatten the top of the top. And since these are so small, we're just going to do this by hand. I've got a nice smoothing plane and a jack plane, which is fine. Number 5 jack plane. And just kind of taking it a section at a time, taking down the high spots and getting it as flat as you can. And that's, after the planing, it sure makes sanding a lot easier. Here, we've actually taken the template and put it on the counter and then transferred the scribes to the counter. The back and the right side of this counter, and then on the other one, the back and the left side of the counter are not straight. They have a curve to them because of the drywall. So at this saw, I'm actually cutting that in and relief cutting the bottom edge so that it butts up against the wall real nice. And here, a little finish sanding before we put the final length on this bit of counter. I think I'm sanding 320, and that's installed. And now we're in the process of working on the uppers. This counter will get linseed oil and then polyurethane over the top of it, and then the upper cabinet will sit on top of this counter, exposing about 8 inches of the maple